Welcome to Making Pondo and Talking Pondo. Talking Pondo is a podcast where we pick out 2 movies each week and talk about them in detail. Making Pondo is a podcast where we talk to people we've made films with and we discuss all their experiences on set.
Okay, well, I guess we're back, right?
Yeah, once again.
Yeah. Another week, another 2 movies, right?
Yeah, another 2 movies that I guess have more to do with what we watched last time than what they do with each other, right? I mean, they're both pretty violent, I would say.
I would agree to that. Yeah, I would definitely agree to that. Both, in a way, have a lot of dark tones. They share a lot of dark tones and a lot of dark themes, in my opinion. Um, yeah, they are similar in a way, in a weird way.
Mhm.
Although one's a Christmas movie and one's basically a western.
Right.
So we picked if you don't remember or if you weren't listening from last week, I picked for Marty Violent Night,
Mm-hmm.
which I personally quite enjoyed, and then he picked for me the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which yeah, we'll
Mm-hmm.
get into. We will get into.
So a couple of more recent choices.
Yeah, more recent movies. We're in, and if you're listening and you're thinking, are they just gonna do these more recent ones? No, we're gonna deep dive into some weird stuff eventually, but we're just trying to kind of warm up and get used to this format and this fun,
Mm-hmm.
and really figure out how we want to attack this.
Yeah, like I have an idea of what movies from week to week, but it's always constantly changing. But
Right, right.
I don't want to be like next week you're watching The Empire Strikes Back or something like because I feel like something like that we who knows, you might throw that at me next week is the fun thing. But personally, I would wait quite a while before
Right,
tackling
right.
that. So
Exactly. And I don't want to throw the Godfather at you
yeah,
this
right.
early,
That's
right?
like
Like
graduate
let's
level. Yeah,
yeah, let's get used to the format. Let's get used to having fun. Maybe eventually maybe we get some feedback about, hey, we like this, we don't like that. We'll focus up a little bit more. But
hmm
now we're just going to watch movies and we're going to talk about what we liked and what we didn't like and what we thought about
yeah. It's podcast.
them. All right. So you want to cover yours first, or you want
uh, okay, sure.
to?
So it only took 4 episodes to pick a Coen Brothers movie, and we
Mm-hmm.
ended up starting at the end because they haven't made a movie together since this, and that's
Yeah,
been a little while. So
yeah, it's true.
before discussing the movie itself, uh, I have heard rumors that they're kind of semi-retired or retired from making movies, and I wonder, did they finally just get tired of it? Did they get tired of each other? Or is it difficult to find a spot in a theater for a Coen Brothers movie? Because you know how
Right.
it's so hard to find
It,
room for
it,
something
yeah.
even remotely different or
People
slow.
people love the Coen brothers, but you, only in small. It's like the their movies hit in very weird areas, and not all. And I mean, I think Fargo. I think they were nominated for In Cold Blood, right? Fargo. They haven't. They've made a bunch of pictures. And, of course, Oh Brother was kind of their big pinnacle,
Hmm.
but they made a bunch of pictures in between that
Oh
nobody
yeah.
really noticed, or Barton Fink and some other stuff that nobody really noticed. I guess Raising Arizona was a small hit for them too.
Hmm.
They've always made quality films that I think filmmakers and critics love, but the general population doesn't really grab onto. But they've gotten better at that as they got
Hmm.
farther into their careers. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is, for me, on my side of the family who grew up in Missouri on a farm. That is like a quoted, often referenced, and if it's on cable, the whole family will watch it type of movie. They love that movie.
Hmm.
Me, I'm like, let's watch The Big Lebowski instead.
Oh, also a future episode, but
Mm-hmm.
no, maybe sooner than later with that one. I don't know.
I honestly assume both of those movies will come up in the
Yeah.
future. I mean, Oh Brother and that one will come up in the
Hmm.
future.
So it is interesting to kind of start where they've left off, and that was just not by design. It's just because for a different reason that I'll talk about in a minute. But I do find it interesting that it's like, oh, so I guess that makes Hail Caesar their last real theatrical film, because this one, as I was watching it, I thought, and I hadn't seen it in 5 years. I'd only watched it like once when
Yeah,
it
me
came
too.
out,
Same
and then
here.
I thought, you know, this really feels oddly made for television. And then I realized it was made for television.
It's a Netflix movie. Yeah.
Yeah, they were going to put it out as a series at one point, was one of the rumors, and I'm glad they didn't, because that would have been too weird. Each one of these individual stories, I
Well,
don't think it would have been enough in each
well,
one to
with
make
the
a thing out.
varying length of the vignette of the different stories, I think I don't think it would have worked.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And strange, an anthology movie to wrap
Yeah.
things up. I remember reading. I had a book about the Coens a few years ago when I was rewatching all their movies, and I remember reading that they had an idea for this Western anthology thing, much like Suburbicon, that movie that they wrote that Clooney directed, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was like, oh, you're doing Clearinghouse here. These are older ideas, and it's like, okay, we're finally getting around to making it.
Oh,
Here's this anthology that pops up.
that's
So,
that's funny you mentioned that. It's kind of one of my first notes when I started watching the movie was I said, I wrote to myself and I said, um, Stephen King and Dance Macabre like to talk about how after he wrote a book, there would always be a novella left over, right? Like a
mm-hmm.
short story left over because of all the stuff that you come up with, but you end up cutting and you don't use, or what a great plot line, blah, blah, blah. That's a story in and of itself. I'll just do that separately. And that's what this felt like,
Mm-hmm.
was like a bunch of these kind of leftover stories that they were like, okay, we couldn't put in that and that. And we had this idea for that, can't go in there. Boom, anthology series.
Yeah.
You know, all the leftovers of True Grit and Oh Brother and all these other pictures that they'd done, you know, boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Like
Mm-hmm.
here's a little bit more of this here. Here's a little bit more of this, and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's really no through line to the film. Like there's no character that walks through all the vignettes or ties everything
Yeah.
together. They're just separate stories
Mm-hmm.
about the Old West. And in the Coen Brothers version of the Old West in this movie, the Old West is just basically like a dreary, fucked up, violent place that you get killed in at any second. Like it's insane.
It's dark.
Very dark.
Yeah. I looked at it like, oh, this felt like their creep show to me in a weird kind of
Yeah.
way. But yeah, you're right about that darkness. Like that brings me to the first of the six.
The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Yeah.
Yeah, the self-titled one, I guess, as it were. And it ties into what you were just saying. Like at first, the Buster character seems like a joke,
Yeah.
and then it gets real violent really quick.
Super quick.
And then I'm like, oh, this is like, and this kind of tone continues throughout, where I thought it was like satirizing the whole horrible nature of the Old West. Like, oh, we like to look at it like it's just the cowboy playing the song, riding along, and the next thing you know, they're fucking killing everybody, and it's horrible. And it's like, so they're showing the two ways that it's represented on film throughout the years, and it's like, oh,
I felt that there was especially in the beginning when, you know, in the beginning when he walks into that first saloon and he kills all those guys.
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of great dialogue, right, and a lot of breaking of expectations. Like this turns into this sudden violent mess, and then he just hops on his horse and he rides off, and then he shows up in this next town and he ends up killing that dude by kicking that table, and it was just, and that felt very like, okay, I can see the Coens and Raimi getting along here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's, because that's, I have to admit I laughed.
Yeah.
I was like, that's just hilarious. You know, the way, kapow, kapow, kapow. It was great. It's stupid as hell, but it was very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the breaking, like this, unexpected, they did a lot of things that sudden and violent and unexpected, right?
Yeah.
In an unexpected way a lot of times. Um, for me, there was for that one especially, it's just like there was way too much singing. Like I
Oh,
don't mind it. I don't mind a musical, but for me, it was just like that, especially that last piece with the bad guy and the cowboy going to heaven. And I'm thinking, he's not a cowboy. He's admitted he's basically an outlaw. And
mm-hmm.
outlaws don't go to heaven. Why is he floating up to heaven?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
A weird dichotomy of it all.
Hmm.
I would think probably out of all six of them, that one might have been my favorite because it was short and it had a few really memorable moments in it. And I enjoy the rest of it, but it almost feels like diminishing returns in a way as it goes on.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, as we'll
Yeah.
discover as we go through.
It was not my favorite. It was not my
Okay.
favorite.
So,
But yeah.
so the next one was the one that gave us the "Oh, is this your first time?" meme.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
first time meme, the classic, absolutely classic meme, which was as soon as I saw it, I started laughing. I was like, yes.
Mhm. That's another short one too, right? That one goes by pretty quick.
Yeah, that one goes. I mean, it's basically kind of a gag. I have to
Hmm.
say, Steven, what's his name?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Played the banker. Oh,
Oh yeah.
I'm
We
gonna.
didn't look at IMDb before the.
We didn't look at IMDb, guys. Sorry about that. But um, trying to just remember his name real quick without.
And news
Steven.
radio and yeah,
Yeah, news radio and Stephen Root. Jeez.
that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, so it was fun to see him again playing a very he's great playing those weird characters, the super, you know, that super weird banker with the shotguns and the comes out with the tin pots all over his body. That was great. That was really funny.
Yeah, that one was just an excuse to have the whole "how long can I hang on the horse" scene, kind of right.
Yeah, and I felt like we'd already seen Franco do that in 127 hours.
Oh yeah,
So no, I'm just kidding. But it just, uh,
definitely the
yeah,
most DC Comics feeling of them, I guess. So let's see. The next one,
I think that was Meal Ticket, wasn't it?
I think
Liam
so. Yeah, I
Neeson's.
should have been
Liam
writing the
Neeson's.
names down of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wrote them all down. So yeah, Meal Ticket was next, and
And
this one overall just, I mean, moved right into like complete depression, where it was just like,
oh,
God, this is fucking
the
dark.
third one. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a. I wrote every anthology seems to have that weird entry,
yes,
and here's
yes,
this story number three that almost felt like a Stephen King short story to me in a weird way. Like something you'd read in the middle of Skeleton Crew or something. Or
yeah,
what was
yeah.
this weird 12-page diversion?
Like a
It's
like a
eerie and dark. Yeah.
like a weird like a Twilight episode. So, Twilight Zone episode that's really, really weird. We're like, oh, that doesn't even make any sense. What the heck, it was repetitive and kind of dull,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like, and I will say I thought it was interesting that the character, I can't remember the actor who played him with no arms and no legs. Um, he was great, and but the only words he said during the whole thing were those speeches. He never had any actual agency as a character. He was just this thing that said things,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of very easy for Neeson to just throw him off the edge of the thing and walk away from it with a chicken as a new, and who you don't
Yeah.
want to say who wouldn't, but chicken's a lot easier to take care of, I guess.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
that's a very odd diversion.
yeah,
The self-indulgent one where it's also like if you made this a series and now that's a whole episode, that's just too
yeah.
weird. You know,
Well,
you
that's
can
really
cram
dark
it in
what
the
I
middle
just
of the
threw there,
movie,
wasn't
but
it? He's a human being. You can't throw him off
mhm.
the edge. That was terrible.
Yeah, that was very that is that the strangest of them all. Oh, I guess we'll
I
decide
think
when we
I
get to
think
the end.
so, but like it never explained who they were.
Right.
Why is he taking care of him? Seemed to be the only reason seemed to be money. Like they didn't, you know, was it his son, his brother? Was it somebody he just found and turned into this? How did this person become, get to act? It was just this kind of weird, sinister. sort of like, because especially once he found the chicken, you were like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit. And I think even the dude knew it at that point when he was riding along with the chicken swinging next to his head. He's like, I am
Oh yeah.
effed.
He knew it. Yeah.
I am effed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just kind of like horrifying. We're just like, good God, man, really?
It's among the
Whoa.
weirder things in their entire Cohen's catalog when I think about it. Is
It's fucking dark. Like, it's super dark, man.
well, one thing I will say about it, and leading into the next one, which I don't know, maybe the next story is my favorite one.
Gold Canyon.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my favorite.
a lot of the times when the Coen brothers can't get Roger Deakins because he's busy on another project, they work with Bruno Delbano, who was the DP on this movie, and
Nice.
he's done a few of their others. And every time I watch one of his movies, I'm just like, this guy is probably my favorite DP because, especially in that gold prospecting one, it's just there's some really great shots going
It's
on. That one, the
beautiful.
opening one with the sun coming
Yeah.
up, I'm thinking, oh, I wonder how long they set up there and you only
Yeah.
get one shot to grab that.
Mhm.
And the reverse
Yeah.
of it, I'm like, I bet that's another day.
It's
maybe the same
beautiful.
time,
It's
but
absolutely beautiful.
so
I
that
love
attitude.
that he enters and leaves the valley. That's how the story begins and ends. It's him entering and leaving that canyon. The canyon's gorgeous. You're right. It's really well shot. It's so pretty.
Yeah, it's and
Mhm.
so tying into Sisu, here's another movie about a
Here's
gold
another.
prospector and
Yeah.
people trying to fuck with him, right? They're
Yeah.
trying to steal his money.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I liked it. I liked that they wrote it so that he had a system. That he wasn't just out there. Just he wasn't guessing. He knew that he was in a natural canyon where things kind of run down and then come to a wash down, and eventually they're gonna collect or whatever. I don't know much about gold prospecting. I assume it has to do with knowing how the soil moves and the rocks move and all that shit,
Mhm.
so you can pick that stuff out. But yeah, Waits was great in it. You know, he was really really good. He's turned into a really good actor in my opinion.
Mhm.
Like the owl eggs where he's all right, I'll just take the one, fine. And I like that it's the minute he finds the gold, he gets shot in the like the
Yeah.
minute he finds it,
Mhm.
like the minute after all that digging, bam, shot in the back.
Mhm.
Hmm.
They did make the system make sense, right? Where it's like, oh, you see a couple specks here, but then it stops. And it's like, okay, so it must be between here and
Right,
here.
right. Well, and he finally got to the top of that pyramid, right? Like he dug all those holes within a kind of a pyramid, and then he stood at the top and he looked down at the sticks that he had placed, and he was like, all right, it's right here, bam, go.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, he hit it.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't hit anything important. It went clean through.
Hmm. Went clean through, and him in the water screaming that is pretty intense stuff. It's good acting on Wade's part.
Yeah. It's probably the best character in the whole movie, I think.
Hmm. But again, in the moment, ultra violent.
Oh, yeah.
Like just ultra violent.
It's like we're back to Blood Simple again, and people are smacking each other around.
Yeah. Um, but it's clearly my favorite. I liked it. He's funny and kind of gruff and interesting to watch on film. Like it's one of those things where you watch one person doing quite a bit for by themselves for
Yeah.
10 minutes on screen.
Mm-hmm.
He's just doing it thing, and you're kind of it's just like, oh, okay, what's he doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's not boring. You're actually compelling, and you're following along. So
Yeah, interesting to put that one after that really weird one to kind of like pull you back up. It's
yep,
like if I'd seen this in a theater, that would have been the one to be like, the spectacle of it.
yep, yep.
And I
And
guess
then it
the
go ahead.
next one's based on a story that somebody else wrote too. I think the prospecting one is based on somebody else's material as well.
Okay. Hmm.
But this other one here is just it's like, oh, the Oregon Trail, the movie, like that
Yeah,
video game we used to play.
it's called the gal who um,
Got rattled.
got rattled. There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah. And for me, it was kind of the most realistic for the most part.
Mhm.
Um, like it without the rest of them again surrounding it are all kind of this hyper crazy violence and really dark and sinister, and like that one you kind of felt dread for her the entire time,
Mhm.
but at the same time it wasn't that sort of violence. I did thought that Indian standoff was really cool. The standoff with the
Mhm.
Native Americans um, was very, very cool.
Yeah, it is interesting because if you're sitting there watching the movie all in one big chunk, it's like this movie's gone on for quite a while here, and now we're hitting story 5 that I think is the longest one.
Hmm.
So I always feel kind of drained by the time I get to the end of that story.
Yeah,
And so flowing into that last one where we're just in pure Coen Brothers weirdness as they're going
yeah,
along in that coach, I've almost checked out. I remember that happened last time too, where I was like, oh,
yeah.
pay attention, but it's still, you
Yeah,
know,
it's like it's sort of brutal in a very like, well, like she gives that dog up to be killed immediately,
yeah.
basically because she can't have people in the wagon train being mad at her, right? And it's not really her dog, so it's like it's not
Hmm.
my responsibility if you want to take care of it. Which is kind of messed up, but at the same time, okay.
Hmm.
Um, it plods along. The story plods along much like you would plod along on the trail, getting from
True.
one place to the other. And there's that whole romance on the plains aspect. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
I kept waiting for the danger or the unexpected, and then I finally got it when she and he hints at it when her fiance says, you shouldn't go wandering. The plains are like the sea; it'll swallow you up pretty quickly, type of thing.
Hmm.
And then sure enough, she's out there again. But again, with that end, it's just like, geez, you know.
Hmm.
And
It's
it
like,
makes sense. She saw him get bonked on the head and get knocked out, and figured,
hmm, yeah, more Stephen King, like,
so dark.
well, I'm like remind me of The Mist, where it's like, no,
Hmm.
just wait a minute, you know,
Yeah,
and it just cuts off with like, oh, he didn't know what he was gonna say.
it's so funny. I mean, most westerns are just predicated on this idea that you know the old west wasn't really a great place.
Hmm.
you know, which is weird because a bunch of people moved out there. So, I guess they all moved to these terrible places that just sucked, right? Like it's because in the westerns it's always these shit ass towns they go to with people running them and terrible sheriffs. It's like, wow, this is like the bad streets of a giant city over and over again. Just in
Hmm.
small town doses or whatever. I don't know what I'm saying.
That's the one that felt like it. I mean, it works in its short format, but it's the one that felt most like its own movie, kind of,
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah, yeah. It almost felt like if you put a little before and after it, you could have had a whole feature.
Hmm. And so when we get to that last one where it's just the people and the coach, I've kind of always checked out both times I watched it, where I'm like, yeah, this movie's so freaking long, and
The
it's all
mortal, the
right. It's got
mortal,
moments,
the
but
mortal remains is what that's
yeah.
called. Yeah,
Hmm.
it felt like a very weird Cohen Brothers version of the Hateful Eight. Um, the beginning of the Hateful Eight, where they're all in that coach together for 45 minutes or however long it
Hmm.
is. It's nice to see Tyne Daly in a movie.
Right.
Ain't seen her in a long, long time. So,
Hmm.
you but yeah, just watching that, I kind of, it felt like I don't know, like a here's dessert. Like here you go. Before
Yeah.
you go, here's a nice little weird one that's pretty short. I think it's like 8 or 9 minutes, maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah. So it's like
Um,
movie's over, so here's this.
yeah, and it's a very like that one reminded me a bit of Lost because you're like, are they in hell? Like, are all these people in this coach actually dead and being taken somewhere, or are these guys actually just bounty hunters taking a body
Right. That's the
somewhere?
debate online. Like, all these characters are dead. Some people were trying to go so far as to say each one represented somebody from each of the stories, and I was trying to piece that, and I think that's just people trying to come up with shit that's not
I
there.
don't know. It gave off very ghost story
Yeah.
vibes, that sort of old type of ghost story, like the one the dude tells in the coach,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, the coach turns into the coach ride of the damned, it was just
And so, yeah, I looked up, and sure enough, this was financed by a TV distributor. So
really
it really is a made for TV movie.
okay. That's
The,
interesting.
the only one that they ever did. And then when the credits started rolling, I thought even more, yeah, this this does feel like it was made for TV. I mean, it was. That's not a knock against it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's just
No,
caught from it. Yeah.
some made for TV stuff is fine.
Of
I mean,
course, of course. Yeah.
um, my favorite thing lately is watching millennials online or whatever generation react to The Day After Tomorrow. You remember that nuclear holocaust movie that we all watched back in the day, and they're all like, "Oh my, this is hardcore," and I'm like, "Oh god."
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, but no, look, overall, I thought it was pretty. It's a Coen Brothers movie, so it's well made.
Yeah.
It looks great. It sounds great. It's clever. It's got all the Coen Brother marks
Mm-hmm.
on it. It's just for me, it's not one I would watch a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just too friggin' dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so dark. The Prospector stuff is great, but even that's dark.
Yeah.
It's about getting shot in the back when you achieve your goal, and this is like, is there nothing positive in any of these? That's the thing. There was nothing positive in any of those. There were no heroic wins. I guess maybe the Prospector won because he lived and he got his gold out, but that poor
Mm-hmm.
girl.
Yeah. And they kind of lay it out in that first story where it's like, oh, I'm the happy singing cowboy, but everything's dark and violent, and it's like,
That's
oh wow,
right.
so we're getting this false
Geez.
hope
Okay. So this
throughout.
is
Yeah,
yeah. This is what we're doing. Okay. So this
that's
is what
the
we're doing.
tone.
Right. And it was consistent with that. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
And to this day of this recording, there is still no DVD or Blu-ray release of this film. You can only watch it on Netflix.
yep, that's what we
So,
had to do.
I don't know how tucked away it is on Netflix at this point. If people have
Yep.
completely forgotten about it, if only Cohen completists are looking for it, but hopefully at some point, maybe when whatever contract there is for their exclusivity, they might actually finally give us a 4K release or something, and then more people can see it. I feel like it's tucked away. I give it 3 out of 5 stars, leaning
I,
towards 3.5 because it looks nice, but I still say around the middle.
I have to go out of 5, 3. I got to go 3.
Yeah.
It's just not very rewatchable.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those that you're just like, all right, watched it, good, cool.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna watch that again for a while.
But yeah, I still would
Which
like
is
to see a physical copy
the,
at some point.
the Western Barton Fink.
That's what they should write on the box when they finally put it out.
I think just thinking of what you were just saying, I just had I'm such a genius, everyone who's listening to this podcast, because I just had this idea. I think Netflix has a very, very good case for a print-on-demand Blu-ray business with just the things that they own. Like, we own these; they're Netflix exclusives, and we're going to make physical print media because I think I mean, obviously you'd have to look at the contracts of whatever. Maybe you didn't include physical media into that contract, but I would imagine since they had a physical media outlet for a long time that they did or do. And I think just I don't know,
Right.
like get 500 people to sign up for a physical run of something and print it out.
Oh yeah, that's not gonna
That's nothing.
hurt their streaming
No,
sales if
never.
That. I mean,
No.
you look at Oppenheimer 4K selling out places, so there's
That's what I'm
obviously
talking about.
still some demand.
Yep. So yeah, overall, I give it a 3. Not something I'd watch again, but I love the Coen Brothers. It was beautiful. to watch. It was beautiful to look at. It was just a dark movie.
Yeah, when I first watched it 5 years ago, I gave it like 3.5, I think, and now watching it again, it was like, oh, okay, it. Not like it didn't hold up, but I just realized, oh, it's just a little too. Yeah, I didn't get as much out of it the second time, especially. So.
There you go. Well, all right, folks, you heard it here first. Feel free to write us emails and tell us how stupid we are.
I think I might have liked it more 5 years ago because I was watching all their stuff in order, and then I got up to that one, so I had all their other shit fresh in my head, and I was like, oh, it feels like this and this and this and this and this. But then when you take it as its own thing, 3 stars. Yeah. So it's funny because last time I watched Sisu on your request, and I said, this movie feels like the spiritual successor to Dead Snow. And so then what do? The next week, you give me a movie from the director of Dead Snow. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So we got this director from Norway making this movie in Manitoba. This guy is from Canada.
Manitoba.
I can always tell when other countries are trying to make movies about American culture because it's a little bit off, right?
Just a little bit.
It reminds me
of
like
an Australian doing an American accent.
Like those Italian dubbed movies from the 80s where they give everybody American names and try to make you think, see, they shot this somewhere in America. No, you didn't. And so Violent Night is what we're led to.
Violent Night.
This is interesting because I guess as far as violence, it might be equal to the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. This one might be a little bit more violent. I'm not sure. It'll live up to its name, definitely.
I think it was pretty violent. Yeah.
When I realized it was from the director of Dead Snow, I went, oh, okay, it's this type of movie, so I'm going to take it a little less serious now. And it was also a U.S. production as well. It was a joint U.S.-Canada production, but much like at the end of Sisu, I'm seeing all these Finland names, and I see the big Manitoba tax credit thing go up, and I'm like, whoa, I don't think I've seen that one before. So they must be moving along up there.
Right.
One of my first observations about Violent Night, boy, that house is jarringly huge. Isn't that living room gigantic?
Yeah.
It's so spacious. Everything's all spread. The guy loves those long, big. So that was interesting. I thought an interesting choice. It's like Beverly D'Angelo's all the way over here, whispering on the phone, and they're over at the couch going, and I'm like, they can't hear her. But this is from the director of Dead Snow. Turn your brain off a little bit because this is just the setup part, much like in the Die Hard template, where we put everybody in place on Christmas Eve, and then everything goes completely.
Everything goes to shit. Yep, everything goes to shit. So the hero gets to go ape shit and save everybody.
We have literal Bad Santa, not Bad Santa with the dude from Sling Blade, which who knows, we might get to that one in a few years. But this is Santa himself is Bad Santa.
Dude from Sling Blade. Dude from Sling Blade.
What's his name? What's his name?
Billy Ray, Billy Bob Thornton. Billy Ray Cyrus Bob Thornton.
God, exactly. But this actor, I remember him from that Black Widow movie. He was probably the best part of Black Widow. What was his
name? David Harbour. Is it David Harbour that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
The Santa who played Santa?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Stranger Things also.
Oh, okay.
He's the sheriff in Stranger Things. He's great in that. That's kind of, I think, where he first got his big rise. I like him. He's a good actor. He comes off as a pretty big dude. Plays physical pretty well. He's got good comic timing too.
Yeah. So he's puking and shitting all the way through this movie, and it's like that's the aversion to puke in a comedy. This might not be for you, but it tells you that from the first 5 minutes. So I got to give it a lot of credit for that. I think this is the movie Judgment Night wanted to be. That type of tone, that energy of. Because once it gets going, it does get pretty crazy. They somehow managed to fit every Christmas trope you can ever think of in there, including into the score, because it's all little pieces of familiar Christmas music interwoven, and
Yes.
so it's like, yeah, they really went all in with the
Yeah.
gimmick.
Yeah, they did.
Much better than a cocaine bear or a Sharknado or anything. It's like, you
Yeah,
guys, this is more what
exactly.
you should be
Yeah.
doing with that.
And there's been this recent slate of like violent Christmas movies, and I mean, if it, another one we may end up getting to is Fat Man,
Oh yeah.
which is kind of this, again, it's Santa Claus kicking ass. This
Hmm.
concept of Santa Claus kicking ass, which I'm not sure where it came about, but it's an interesting trope, and I kind of enjoy it, to be
What are you
completely
saying?
honest
A
with you.
good action sequence don't belong at Christmas? Well, then read
Right?
on, Joe
Right?
Robinson.
If you, I mean, if you're against that, then you're against America.
It's like Roadhouse,
Uh,
Patrick's
perfect
favorite
example.
Christmas. You know what this movie really felt like? It
What?
felt like an R-rated kids movie.
Yeah,
It has all the
yeah.
tone of a Christmas film. Oh, I want mommy and daddy to get back together, and then what the fuck? He's got the sledgehammer, So it's having it both ways. I'm like, well, who is this movie for? Because the kids shouldn't be able to go see it, and the adults might think it's too kiddie. But then I realized if I was 10, this might be the greatest movie in the world that I was not supposed to be watching.
Yeah, yeah. See,
Santa's kicking ass.
Santa's kicking some ass. Wasn't there? I liked. Wasn't there like some? If I remember, it's been a minute since I've seen it. I watched it about 2 weeks ago, and then I watched
Hmm.
Scruggs yesterday. So
Hmm.
Scruggs is much more fresh. But isn't there a scene where he's like got like tattoos or mystic kind of fucking
Oh yeah,
weird
Santa's
stuff
all
going
tattered
on, and
up.
Santa's all tatted up and stuff, and it's like,
Oh, that's different.
okay, so was he a Nordic warrior or was he Santa Claus? Well, apparently he's both, and this is
Yeah.
fantastic. Let's go.
Hmm.
He's like a magical
Hmm.
dwarf that grew 6 feet tall and passes out presents or something.
Yeah. And much like Sisu, here we go, fucking with Dude again, who just wanted to be left alone or to do his thing.
Yep.
And so basically, the plot of Violent Night, to keep it simplified, is rich people are holed up in their nice little compound on Christmas Eve, and then, oh, that's the evening we choose to do the heist. Gee, I feel like we wrote a script at one point about a
Uh
heist
huh.
on Christmas Eve, even.
We
But the
did.
twist here is Santa's delivering presents to that very house at that same time, and
That's
now
right.
Santa has to help this family get out of the mess. So it's kind of Die Hard template through the filter of Home Alone. I look at it
Yeah.
as the actual sequel to Hereditary we never got, where after they turn that kid into the demon lord or whatever, then Santa shows up and starts kicking some fucking ass. That's
That's
just me.
fantastic.
That's just me. So,
Oh my god, that's hilarious. Oh, I can't stop. Oh, okay, that's great. No, I liked it. Like it felt very John Wickish in parts to me. Uh, but at the same time, like with a touch of Thor or something. I don't know.
oh yeah, yeah. More than a touch with his skull crusher, which showed up too late. He'd already done all the skull crushing, but now maybe, there might be some more naughty people along the way. It opens itself up for Violent Night 2 and etc. They could go more with that if they really wanted to. It's nice how they.
And killing Scrooge, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
grabbing him and then just going up into the chimney,
Oh, I was
and
just thinking about that.
it was like, let's see, yeah. One of the things about Sisu that I remember I was telling you when we were talking about was kind of every kill was sort of its own little painting.
Oh, and so was this when it was
So
all
was
Christmas
this.
related kills. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We even get a Christmas tree being shot at. It's funny.
Hmm.
We were thinking the same thing because I was thinking about that going up the chimney thing. Because this
Yeah.
movie does that Chekhov's gun thing, but they bury it because he can't make his magic work to do his nose thing. But you don't think when he's going to kick it in and it's going to be the thing that fixes everything at the end. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, clever, because I didn't see that coming.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's like
Yeah.
that wraps it all full circle there. Uh, I did notice that the family, the main characters, the broken up couple, they kind of stopped being the main focus of the movie somewhere around the middle, and then towards the end they suddenly become the focus again. So I did think it was a little too long. I felt like it was meandering a little bit to get to where it was going. And
Yeah.
by the time it got there, I was like, oh, I was expecting a little bit more, but I still enjoyed it. And it's funny, coming from me, I think there was too much cursing.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, oh, I must be getting old. Because I'm like, some 10-year-old's going to see this, and if they hear fuck, 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 maybe I have PTSD from screenings where
Yeah,
like every
yeah,
other word, and I'm like, oh, you can't say fuck that many times in a movie. It turns some people off. But this is Violent Night. This is
well, and if
supposed to do it.
people who don't know us or haven't seen that movie, we wrote a movie where I don't know, we were trying to I don't know, it was like we were trying to outdo Tarantino with how vulgar the film was, and it was vulgar
We thought it
beyond
was funny.
belief.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought it was funny, but it wasn't.
No, that's why you do more than 2 or 3 drafts before you put something into production. But we were
Lesson
trying to
learned.
go fast, the whole
Lesson learned.
let's do
Lesson
it, bam,
learned.
bam, bam. And then I remember sinking into the chairs, a little bit of making Pondo for you here. I remember sinking into the chairs, hearing, every time somebody said fuck on the screen, which felt like every other word.
Every other word.
And so maybe I'm watching this one going, wow,
Every
Santa
other
says fuck a
word.
lot. But I guess
Yeah.
maybe that's the shock factor. But it brought me back to if Bad Santa was the action hero.
Well, it was rated R,
It
and
very much is, yes.
it was an hour and 52 minutes, so maybe it was a little long. I could agree with that.
A little,
Maybe you
but
could have
not
whittled. Maybe you could have
bad.
whittled maybe 7 or 8 minutes out of it.
Yeah, it was fine though for what it
Yeah,
was. I enjoyed
I
it.
thought I did too. I thought it was pretty funny.
Hmm.
Refreshingly violent.
Yeah, what a strange one. I watched that one over the course of 2 days.
Ah, okay.
I wasn't certain if we were recording this week, but I figured, okay, let me watch this one and the other one again just to get kind of a ramp up. And
Hmm.
so I would say both movies probably a little too long. But Buster Scruggs is definitely long. While it's
Buster
this one,
Scruggs.
maybe
I
five.
mean, Buster Scruggs came in at what 212, 215, something like that. It was long.
Yeah.
It was long.
Would its pacing be weird if a story was removed from it?
Which one are you going to remove? That's
That's
the
the
thing
thing.
is
Yeah.
it's almost like going up and down a hill, right? Where it's like short, kind of a decent length, short, and then long, another long one, and then back down to a short one again.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know. What would you remove? Maybe the James Franco bit.
Oh yeah. But I guess they do kind of fit their own timing and palate cleansing in a way, because then you have
Yeah,
others that butt up against each other.
yeah,
No, maybe they had more of a blank check on it. It's like do whatever you feel like.
yeah. Violent Night. I definitely think they could have trimmed it a bit. I think I can see that in my head also. Yeah, you could have. Yeah, you could have lost a bit there.
I
You
just
didn't
would
have
have,
to spread all that
it's
out.
like here we go, here I go rewriting somebody else's movie. But
Sure, sure,
if
sure.
they, what would I do different in that movie? Uh, and it would see it changes the movie, obviously, but you make the parents, you care about those characters a little bit more, keep them
Hmm.
more front and center throughout, and set up Santa and get to the action quicker. Because I felt
Right,
like we
right,
would
right.
go in and out of it a few times.
Hmm. Hmm.
But hey, that's
Yeah,
you can
and
drive
and
it,
and
right?
then also
It's
you don't
supposed
have to
to be
drag
that.
the action out as much. A little drag. The action of it dragged a little much, in my opinion. Like,
But for
it,
limited budget, because
yeah,
that's obviously not that huge of a movie. Most of the money was probably paid to some of the actors, and I think they did a really outstanding job for what they had.
yeah, yeah. I enjoyed it.
I'm still going to say 2 out of 5.
Really, two
Mm-hmm.
out of five.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Leaning towards the 2.5, but I was just still like, yeah, it's cute. I enjoyed it. It's fun, but I don't know if I'm going back to it anytime soon. I'm glad that I watched it.
For
But
me, it's
that's
one
the
of
weird
those.
thing about movie ratings, right? Because you got 1 terrible, 3 okay, 5 great.
Yeah.
There
Oh
should be
well.
some more gray ground in
Yeah. Don't
between.
well. Don't let me talk you out of your rating. But I mean, For me, it's going to be one of those ones that around Christmas I'll watch every year.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm gonna drag that out and watch that. I watch Fat Man every year now. I watch that one. I watch Scrooged, every year. Those are my Christmas. I don't like the happy, light Christmas movies. I like and I'm not like I'm not a big fan of a lot of the horror Christmas movies that have been made. There's a couple that are all right, but I prefer to watch those rather than It's a Wonderful Life or stuff like that. So Miracle on 42nd Street or whatever Hallmark thing they're trying to shove up your butt this year. But so for me, it's one that I'll go, and that's why I'm going to give it like a solid 3. I'm going to give it a solid 3 because it's one that I'll go back to over and over again. This is going to eventually we'll have to do not anytime soon, but we'll have to do like a holiday favorites, like the ones that are always in rotation during holiday, because like that'll be My Cousin Vinny, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, A Christmas Vacation. That's another great Christmas movie. Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Uncle Buck. All those ones that the families all sit around and watch that are always on TNT or whatever. If you've got Google Plus or cable still.
Night of the Comet. Hey, wow.
Night of the Comet.
Christmas movie we've covered. And so, this movie also reminded me of this Brian Posehn Christmas movie from a few years ago. I think it was called Saint Nick. I might be getting the title wrong, or Uncle Nick or something like that. Really should do my research, right? But that was another one of those where it was like, it's funny and it's cute, but you're really trying to do that edgy Christmas thing, But hey, kudos to them. They fucking did it and put the movie out. I'm sitting here on a podcast talking about it, so who am I, right? But it did remind me of those kind of vibes. All that one's just a straight extreme comedy. It's not an action movie or anything.
Right.
Uncle Nick. Yeah, I discovered that. I'm like, oh, weird, a Brian Posehn Christmas movie. Okay, I'll watch this. And it was all right.
Okay.
It was a little
interesting.
But it did remind me of, your recent oddball Christmas movies. They keep putting out weirder and weirder ones. And much like Sisu, this felt like 20th Century in a blender. Like, this is what happens years after we've got all these movies. Now we're going to blend them all together, and Santa's an action star.
I love it.
And his reindeers came back to him.
Yes, they did.
They got scared off. Man, his scroll that did all the naughty and nice thing was an interesting touch,
Yep.
It's like, it's not real. I don't know how it works. It's Christmas magic.
Yeah, like I said, I enjoyed it. I really think it's one of those that I'll watch probably once a year.
So now you have two Beverly D'Angelo Christmas movies, right?
Right.
Vacation.
And Violent Night. Good point. I did not know that it was made by the guy who did Dead Snow. That's hilarious.
What a weird coincidence,
yeah,
right?
That's a very weird coincidence, man.
I looked it up and I'm like, Dead Snow 2. And I think he's done a couple other
Violent Night.
And then I was like, well, that makes sense then. That makes sense that it's this going to be hyper, kind of turn your brain off. It's almost akin to a slasher movie in a way, but Santa's the slasher, but he's not the bad guy slasher like we've seen before. This is Killer Santa, but killing the bad guys.
This is killer. This is righteous Santa.
Yes.
This is not just going out and killing for no reason Santa. This is saving the kids and reuniting the family Santa. You got to save Christmas and get back to the reindeer Santa,
Yeah, you can use that rage for good. Like I was getting Christmas vibes from it. So.
All right, so a 3 for Buster Scruggs from you, and a 2 for Violent Night.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I was a 3 on Buster Scruggs, and I think a solid 3 on.
Nice.
We're gonna have to find some movies that are really polarizing here. We're just kind of landing in the middle a bit.
Well, I'm sure they'll just happen. That's the thing. Yeah. You almost don't know from week to week what's gonna.
Well, I think I've got one for you this week.
All right.
I think I do. But you go ahead if you want to announce yours first. Please feel free.
Okay, so my pick, after much deliberation, my pick is going to be the first film from the 71 film Cliff 80s Classic playlist,
Oh no.
and your film is Dragon Slayer.
Dragon Slayer. Okay.
Why? So it'll force myself to finish watching it as well. I have seen the film before, but it's been a long time, and I've started it, and I've needed an excuse to finish it, and I'm like, you know what? It's part of the list anyways. It's going in. As we're back to our D&D type movies.
So mine for you is, I think it's going to be a polarizing movie for you. Not in a bad way, but just in a way where you're definitely going to have something to say about it. And it's a movie called Bottle Shock.
Oh, okay.
So it stars Alan Rickman and Chris Pine, who wears the worst wig known to man.
Yeah, I saw it a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay,
So
so you've seen it. Okay,
good revisit. Yeah.
okay, cool. All right, so I'm interested to see what you think on that one when we
Yeah.
talk. Yeah. Because for me, it's one of those movies you're either gonna love or you're gonna hate. It's like Sideways. You
Yeah.
either like that movie or you hate that movie, right?
Sideways also potentially coming eventually. There's a lot of movies coming.
There's a lot of movies coming eventually, guys. Yeah. I mean, we're gonna be doing this a while.
Yeah.
Even if you're not listening, it's fun for us to have a record of this. So
Exactly.
that's what we'll do. All right. Well, that was interesting. Dragon Slayer it is.
When was the last time you looked at that?
It's been a decade, I think. I think it's been a while. Maybe not. I have it on Blu-ray, so I've watched it a while back. Yeah, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So almost a decade. Yeah.
Yeah, I have in compiling ideas of movies to watch next, I kind of have my next 8 sort of lined up, but it just switches back and forth, and so one that kept getting bumped got bumped again, but who knows, maybe that one will be the next choice.
Dragon Slayer. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I feel like that's, like you said, that's just so you can get through it on your list and move on to other things to
A
watch.
little bit of clearinghouse, but it's also part of the 71 film collection, 80s classics. That's compiled by Cliff.
The 71 film collection.
And I'm not necessarily going through those in order.
Well, and that's not necessarily a complete collection. That's just what I happen to have on hand.
It's just a random smattering, but in a way, that list, which who knows, I almost feel like revealing it on a letterbox, but then that'll tell you what's on it. Was the list that I went, that's such a good list, you could make a podcast just based on those 71 films. And I feel like the next thing you know, now we have this, so it's like, well, hey, those movies got to go in. And some of them might be next week. Some of them might happen fucking years from now. Some of them we might not ever get to, but they're there. And some of them you might pick before I pick them.
Classic 80s, 71 items. Yep. Wow.
See, I thought Last Starfighter was on that list, but no.
No, I think
this is the second one from that list.
I think I put that in B. I think I put it in 80s B movies. Yeah, because it is kind of a B movie.
I went through the B movie list and I was like, well, everything eventually. You know, the 80s list was the one where I was like, yeah, because these are all like foundational for movie podcast type movies, and you know you can instantly get at least a half-hour conversation out of any one of those films. So,
well, and see, that's why I'm coming from the opposite angle and trying to do like stuff outside of that, so we're not hitting the same genres constantly.
Yes.
So like, I'll be throwing Tarantino at you and weird stuff like that, and you know, Fincher or Villeneuve or something like that, just to kind of keep all this, you know, 80s stuff at bay. You know, so at least is a interesting mix. Should be good.
And the 80s list is only one sub list. You know,
right,
another 200 movies off to the side that I'm picking from too. So
we're gonna be doing this forever.
Yeah. By year 3 or 4, that's when it starts getting really interesting, because then we have to pick weird shit because we did everything else. So
400 blows. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Marty, got anything else to say about these 2 movies?
No, I think that's about everything. Yeah.
I think that's it. All right. Well, I guess we'll see you next week.
Cool.
All right, man. Later.
Thanks.